Okay, I was referring to understanding the nature of Al-Anon, not Al-Anon, I'm sorry, AA, and understanding that it's a lifetime support program, and gosh, I'm just going to try to create some learning experiences for you that are going to count as the test to help you kind of get a bird's eye view about how AA is done, and I think that'll help you, those of you who have never experienced it, and you know, some of you will have and some of you won't, so I think that'll be a good learning experience for you. So I was just trying to emphasize that understanding what Al-Anon, I'm sorry I keep saying Al-Anon, I mean to say AA or NA, understanding what those programs are like for the person in recovery could be quite helpful for you. You can't convince someone to do it, but it is important as any kind of human services worker to have a kind of a cursory understanding of how these programs help people. The client eventually needs to be assessed if you're engaging in the initial stages of crisis intervention and the person is the addicted person. They eventually are going to need to be assessed for their substance use and level of addiction. And this is very important, of course, for safety as the person maybe is going into a treatment program. Do they need detoxification, or can they go to treatment and not have detoxification, for example? So there are several kinds of, pencil and paper assessment instruments that are used to ask questions about use and abuse. On page 233 of your text, one of them is described that I kind of like the sound of. It's called the CAGE questionnaire, and it's simply 4 different questions. I'm going to read them to you, but it's at the very bottom of page 233. And so the acronym CAGE stands for the question A, have you ever felt have you ever felt that you needed to cut down? That's the C in the CAGE. Have you ever felt that you needed to cut down on your drinking? The second question is, have people been annoyed by your drinking, or have they criticized you about your drinking? The third question is, have you ever felt guilty about your drinking? That's the G in the acronym. And finally, have you ever felt you needed a drink first thing in the morning? And that it really refers to having something that people who are alcoholics call an eye-opener, which is an early morning drink to stop the shakes and jitters that a person feels and get them started in their day. So just reminding you or letting you know that there are assessment instruments that are used. Most of you in this class have not been exposed to those, but those of you who are in the substance abuse program and graduating from that program definitely would have been exposed to some of those assessment instruments with Ms. Hoffman. And maybe in Substance Abuse Overview, she might have taught you about some of those instruments. Now I want to talk about ways or programs of self-help and group support for recovery. And gosh, I've really mentioned AA and NA throughout this lecture, and you just, I can't really overemphasize just basic understanding of those two programs. They're actually almost identical, but of course the NA stands for Narcotics Anonymous, and these are for people who are in recovery from narcotics. You should know actually that there is sort of a in-house feeling between people who are in Alcoholics Anonymous and people who are in Narcotics Anonymous. In my view, I've always understood that there's a little bit of I don't know, like judgmental attitude between these two programs, and I don't, you might want to investigate that. Some of you might already know that people who are in NA kind of criticize AA for certain reasons. But anyway, I guess what I'm trying to think about and have you think about is that NA and AA are both 12-step programs. They use the exact same steps and structure of a 12-step program, but there is some difference kind of attitudinally between these two groups. And I think I didn't know about that until people I knew who were in NA talked to me about it. So there is, one of the treatment interventions in terms of support, group support in recovery, is AA or NA. Another format that you might hear about or be exposed to is called 12-step facilitation. This is something that might be done in a treatment program where somebody maybe is in a 30-day treatment program. And this is a manualized structure that is absolutely 12-step based, and it's 12 different sessions, 12 to 15 different sessions, and each one of those actually addresses one of the 12 steps. Maybe the early ones have to do with just learning about recovery or addiction. But it's a short program based on the principles of AA. So you might hear about 12-step facilitation. And the goal for the 12-step facilitation is to really, at the beginning of a person receiving treatment, to help them understand that they really, in fact, do need to abstain from drug and alcohol use, that they actually do have addiction, that they can't really get around it or deny it or not accept it, that they really are at this place. And so that is one of the kind of big ideas with the 12-step facilitation program. The lecture, the textbook also mentions family therapy, and this will be the last area of this topic that I want to spend some time talking with you about. So family therapy can be so very important for family members and loved ones of people who have substance abuse disorder. This is because the behaviors that people who are addicted engage in and the behaviors that loved ones engage in are so destructive one to another. And it's super important and very, very helpful and very powerful for family members to start learning about addiction and to start learning about recovery, and very particularly to learn about behaviors that the family members or loved ones might engage in or have engaged in that sort of undermine sobriety. And so these behaviors are referred to as enabling behaviors. I'm sure you've heard this term before. You probably know exactly what this is. And also codependency. And so this is important, really important and very, very helpful. If you can get family members to be involved with this, oh my goodness, it will be such a help to them and such a help to their suffering. So one of the most important programs associated with this is Al-Anon, which is the program that mirrors Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous in structure. And so family members and loved ones attend a separate, different meeting called Al-Anon that helps them understand what appropriate behavior is for them in relation to their addicted loved one. And gosh, super helpful to alleviate suffering as well. Somehow in this I've come to, in my notes, medical approaches to treating alcoholism. And so I guess I'll continue on with that set of ideas. During the emerging crisis, let's see, this is all about detoxification, and I think I already talked about all this, so I'm going to skip that. Well, okay, I guess I'm going to continue with this. It does appear in my notes at this place under medical interventions, and so I've already talked about detoxification and hospitalization. I think I already talked about this. I don't know why it's appearing here. But anyway, also while in the hospital, clients will be going to group therapy and educational classes to help build their self-esteem and battle the denial of addiction. And after participation, there is also participation when you're in the hospital in things like recreational therapy and, just doing physical things. And this is partly because people who are addicted kind of get away from having fun any other way than by using their substance. That is their love, their substance becomes their best friend, it becomes their, everything, really. And so recreation therapy is often one of the pieces of treatment so that clients can really just engage differently, engage their brain differently, and engage their minds and their hearts in other kinds of activities, it just kind of can reawaken them to what life can look like without constantly using a substance. I want to just briefly mention intensive outpatient programs. This is another hospital-based treatment format that you'll hear about. So if you think about the phrase intensive outpatient, it's very clear that this is it's a treatment program based at a hospital, usually, with highly trained staff and medical staff, but the people engaged in it, the substance abusers, are going home every night. They're not spending the night in the hospital, and this is a cost-reducing measure. So for some people who are in recovery, IOP, or intensive outpatient programs, can be just the right thing. And so they will go to IOP for a half a day or for the better part of a day, and then they might also work, or they might go to an IOP program at night and work during the day. They're experiencing intensive group therapy and individual therapy in this IOP program. They're also being medically supervised if they need to be, and so this is just another format that has cropped up, I'd say, in the last, 15 years, probably, maybe 20 years, when we started to do some cost containment and not just have everybody in the hospital for these kinds of things. A more recent medical intervention that's mentioned in your textbook is the development of an addiction vaccine. And I think this is interesting. It is meant to strengthen the human immune system, and actually there is in development now a cocaine vaccine. I haven't read about this. I meant to before I put this in the lecture, and then other kinds of vaccines are being developed. So for methamphetamine and heroin and nicotine, these are all in development. This is described on page 236 and 237 of your textbook. So it's just another piece of possible medical intervention that could be coming down the pike. Wow, could be great, right? Okay, I'm going to stop the clip now, and then the last portion of this lecture is just going to be about how to help family members with enabling and codependent behaviors.